Throughout the month of December, protests and open revolt engulfed the country of Greece. Actions have ranged from mass marches, to the occupation of television stations and schools, to the attacking of police stations and government buildings. The unrest began with the killing of 15-year-old Alexandros Grigoropoulos by the Greek police on December 6th. Almost 1 month later, there is no end in sight to the uprising. So who are the protesters in Greece? The Real News spoke to Dionysis Granis, an independent journalist in Thessaloniki, Greece.
Most of the people involved are students and pupils. There is some workers' organizations, especially teachers, that are involved, and also some of the demonstrations were co-organized with the main workers' union of Greece, because there's also a big economic crisis and there's a lot of workers' demands.
The center stage of the month's events have been the Athens neighborhood of Exarchia, home to Greece's Polytechnic University that was occupied by demonstrators for 18 days. Exarchia is also the scene of Alexandros' homicide. The Real News spoke to a resident of the neighborhood who preferred to remain anonymous for security reasons. It appears from the messaging of the protesters that a lot of the inspiration is coming from the Greek anarchist movement.
Of course, there's a strong anarchist movement in Greece, and I think they played a big role as well, in the whole thing, but not taking the lead. I mean, there are so many thousands of people who were at the streets. Most of the people probably they're left-oriented, but you could see people that they differ a lot from the figure of an anarchist or a leftist. I mean, that's people that are sensitive to social issues. I mean, you could see well-dressed ladies swearing at the riot police. You could see grannies throwing pots in my neighborhood in Exarchia to riot police from their windows. Just people that are a bit hopeless, right now with the whole situation in Greece.
The story that we get in the international media is that all of these 3 weeks of protests has all been a result of the murder of Alexis. And there's no context given. Could you talk a little bit about what are the other causes of this, the broader causes in the society?
You could say that these protests are continuing from a wave of occupations in universities and schools that took place last year and the year before that. The biggest problem with high school and universities as well is that they don't get much money, and the whole infrastructure is breaking down, and they are trying to push the universities to find money from other sources, from tuition fees, and there's also difficulty in finding a job after university, so people are paying a lot of money to study and then they're not sure whether they can find a job or not. So there's a lot of insecurity among the youth. And also because of the economic crisis, you could say that there is a general pessimism in the society.
There's no social policy. I mean, you take a walk at the hospital and see hundreds of people waiting in queues. I mean, young people just see that, they see what happens in their house, in their schools. Okay, the murder, of course, it was just a spark. The murder happened after, a series of scandals that the two big parties were involved in the last years. I mean, there were many of them, and actually nobody ended up in jail, nobody. And nobody will, and the people know that. People see all this corruption, get angry.
So you see a lot of destruction of banks. Is there a message to be taken from the fact that people are targeting banks?
I can say that a lot of people sympathize with the attack against the banks. The banks have been really ruthless in Greece. They have been lending money at very high rates and taking people's houses. There hasn't been really much control on the part of the government, so people are really angry at banks. The youth has a deeper existential problem. It doesn't have to do so much with how much money people are going to earn. I think that the biggest problem has to do with, finding a purpose in life, for doing something that's worth it. In this country, a young person feels that there's no thing you can do in order to be recognized, to do something for your community and for your fellow men. So I think that the young people feel that there's nothing really worth doing at the moment. So that's why they're attacking the whole political system. Because also I think they feel that the left cannot represent them and express their agony. All these people, are really not organized in parties. They're not able to talk. They're not able to express all their agonies. So that's why they're reacting in this kind of way. And also, you could say that this consumerist wave that used to be very strong in Greece recent year is somehow reaching its end. Young people feel that they're not able to fulfill themselves through consuming.
Information from organizers is quickly transmitted via the internet and translated into a dozen languages within hours. The message from these communications is clear. Those in the streets have no intention of stopping anytime soon. It appears that the youth enjoy the support of much of the population as well. A recent poll showed that 60% of Greeks believe that the movement is a popular uprising and not the work of minority activists.
The thing is that the government doesn't listen at the moment to the problems. Just keep sending the riot police. A whole neighborhood that I live in, Exarchia, has turned to a gas chamber. They threw over 4,000 tear gas bombs. They don't solve problems by making a neighborhood like this or by beating or arresting students. I don't think that the people are going to stop protesting about, what's happening.
Student unions are trying to start a whole wave of school occupations, and the pupils in the schools just keep demonstrating. They don't want to stop. So I think that things will continue in January.
Students and workers in Greece are organizing for a national day of action on January 9th. The day is significant in Greece as it marks the anniversary of the 1991 assassination of high school teacher Nikos Temponeras for his participation in the school occupations of that day. As 2008 comes to a close in Greece, there is no end in sight to the conflict and great uncertainty as to what 2009 has in store.
Endless wars, abuse of powers, declining living standards, and the climate change crisis. The stakes couldn't be greater in the U.S., and with your help, we're moving our news operation to Washington, D.C., where we'll focus on money and corruption. For example, big oil and arms companies shape American economic and foreign policy with far-reaching effects on the lives of ordinary people. With allies in government, trade unions, the media, and in think tanks, they're a hidden hand that controls the commanding heights of American politics. Taking on the industrial military complex is what real change requires. Even former presidents and high administration officials have said so. But corporate television news treats such positions as marginal. Uncompromising journalism requires questioning assumption, interrogating structures of wealth and power. Corporate TV news just won't do it. Only a news organization that's truly independent can tackle such issues with courage and tenacity. And we'll take on corporate TV news live. You'll watch TV news with our panel of writers, journalists, scientists, and historians. You'll be able to join in by phone, webcam, chat. Together, we'll discuss and debate what's the real story and take on the myth and the propaganda. But this is only possible if you support us now. We need to prove that a viewer-funded model works. So if you want the real news, we need you now. Please click on the donate button and give generously. Now's the time to decide if you want the real news to thrive.
Your tax-deductible donation makes it possible. Please contribute at therealnews.com.